Hello everyone, it's Marie from Skeletorama again. Welcome back to my channel. How is everybody? So I'm doing good, and we are on to now part 2 of the table for the Mad Hatter's Tea Party. So we've finished the very top decorative tablecloth, and so now we are going to start on the ruffles and finishing that kind of part up, which takes a minute. So yeah, that's what we're going to be doing now. So I hope you enjoy part 2. And now it's time to play with this fabric. And the nice thing with the one that we just made, you can change that length on the sides to any length and have that be your final tablecloth that way. You know, so you don't have to even do this part. But we're going to do this part because it's unnecessarily fussy, and that's just what I like to do. Okay, so now this one here, we want to make sure that the ruffles are in this direction, because it would look terrible if they were in this direction on the side of the table, right? So we want them to be in this direction. I have measured this fabric here, and it's a little over 20 inches wide. So in order to do our ruffles, let me grab my paper again. So we want the ruffles to be about 8 centimeters tall, which is roughly 3 3/6 inches. In order to have the ruffles extend the length, you want to do about 2.5 to 3 times the length of whatever it is that you're putting ruffled stuff on, right? So our table is 11.75 inches roughly on the long side, which means we need 29 to 35 inches of fabric ruffled in order to do this the way that we want to. Well, this is 20 inches. This is why we're doing extra ones, okay? So we'll need at least 2 lengths of this per long side. With the short side, it's only 4 inches, so we only need between 10 and 12 inches, so we only need 1 strip each. So we're going to cut a total of 6 strips of this. And we're going to hope it'll do 6 strips. Okay, so we want 3 3/16 inches tall, which means in order to get 6 strips, if I've got it folded like this, this needs to be, what, 9 9/16. So about 9.5 inches tall. Is it? Oh, just barely. Okay. Yay. All right, so I'm going to cheat a little bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this fabric because, you know, as you can see, my quilting ruler doesn't go all the way across. I don't want to have to keep moving it because then I'm going to shift. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to fold this way. Okay, so it's doubling the length of the fabric. The key here is just make sure you are straight, or this won't work very good. And we're going to square up our end anyway. They didn't cut it very straight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this back here, and this is how I do strip quilting. So if I'm doing any kind of, you know, pattern with a quilt, this is how you cut the strips for it. I try not to fold it more than twice because then, yeah, you will get kind of wonky stuff. But what we're going to do is I'm going to take my fabric here and my quilting ruler, and I'm showing you this here because I'm going to have to scoot it down. But I'm going to take it here on this, and I'm going to line the edge here up with these, and I can already see that it's not quite correct. I'm going to use the stripe to help me with this. If you have anything other than stripes, don't even sweat it. You got this, but stripes are by nature very difficult to do without them going wonky on you. All right, so looks like I've got this folded pretty good here. Let's go a little bit that way. So I'm just going to fold it so I've got 1 full black stripe along the bottom, so I can make sure I'm straight all the way up, because see, it's kind of creeping. So the same stripe needs to be visible for the whole length of my little folded fabric here. Only got to do that once. All right, so I'm going to line one of these, you know, lines here up with this bottom edge so that I know I'm square. Stand up again. And you can also line it up with your grids on your mat. Works just fine. But I'm going to line it up with my ruler. It's just easier for me. And I'm going to go here so that I can catch all of the weirdness. So I've got my ruler straight, but this stuff isn't straight. And I want to lose as little material as possible so that I can make sure I get enough lengths of the fabric for the ruffles. All right, so we are square now here. So our ruffles need to be 3 3/16 inches tall. So this one only goes to 3, but that's fine because, you know what, I need to switch this around this direction. I need to cut with my ruler over here or I'm not going to do this right. Okay. So this is 3, 1, 2, 3 inches here. So I'm just going to hold it so that I see about a 1/16 of an inch showing. Right? No, 3/16. Right, I guess we're going to use the mat after all. So we'll put it on a single line here. Okay, so that's 1 1/2/8. And this mat has them at the top and the bottom too, so you can line it up this way, like so. Make sure we're even. So 1 1/2/8, again being 3/16. Yeah, it'll work, I promise. All right, and I'm going to cut. And I'm going to do this for 6 strips, so I'll join you guys back in a second. Bring these back in. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's all I had to spare. Talk about cutting it close. Okay. So yeah, in other words, we're not going to be able to do another tablecloth with this to test it out. So, oh well, not a big deal. I actually really like the way that one's looking on that. So, put my guard back up on that. Now, what we're going to want to do is the same thing we did with everything else. So we're going to take this, and I did iron it, but it's just, it didn't want to hold it terribly well, but it won't matter once we gather it. So we're going to take our strip, and we're going to do the same thing where we're going to fold it up this way, we're going to iron it, and then we're going to hem just the bottom part of it. And then each side, I think, as well. Yeah, we better do each side too, just because it'll fray otherwise. Well, no, we shouldn't, because I'm going to have to cut it anyway. So, okay, change plan. We're not doing the side, and we'll end up kind of attaching them together. So we should be okay. We'll figure it out when we get there. All right, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this off camera, obviously, because it's going to take a minute, but I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to iron these edges, and then I'm going to put the score tape on there, just like we did on the main table, and fold it over. So I'll join you back when I've got 6 of these guys all hemmed at the bottom and ready to go. All right, so this is number 6, but I wanted to show you how I'm going to do the ends. Now, the reason I didn't do the hem on here is I didn't want to add that extra bulk, because it's going to be twice as thick, you know, when I go to attach it to the table. So what I did instead is I used this. This is called Fray Check. You can use other stuff, technically, you know, nail polish, glue, that kind of. This works really, really well. There's really no really good substitute for it that I know of. So if you do any kind of sewing or working with fabrics, especially with miniatures, this really should be in your toolkit because it's great stuff. So what you do is you just put this along the edge, and it's going to be just a tiny bead of it. And what I do is I'll do like a length of it, and then I'll pinch the edge of it between my 2 fingers here so I can make sure it's worked into the fabric real good. I don't want it, it's thin bodied, so it's not usually prone to sitting kind of on the surface, but I want to make sure I get all of those little ends in there captured with this. So I'm going to do this all the way down here, and I'm going to do it on the ends as well. And then I'll show you, you know, how that looks, but that will keep us from having to, you know, worry too much about the ends fraying on us and having to finish them and all that. If I could do it in a straight line, that would be even more exciting. And so when I do this down here, I'm also going to hit this part down here that I have folded over and attached and hemmed. There's that end. And then this one, you can see it's already started to fray just a tiny bit. So this will stop that. And what I do with that is, even if it's frayed, I go ahead and put the fray check on, and then I'll cut the little bits that are hanging off after this stuff is dried. So that way I'm sure that I captured everything. Okay, so you can see here now, it's like, see how it turns the fabric kind of dark, and you're thinking, oh yeah, but you're going to see that. You won't, because here's one that's already dry. Okay, so you're not seeing it. It's not like with Fabri-Tac, where if you get it on there, it's got this spot that you are going to see and it kind of stains it. This does not, because that's what this is made to do. Any other materials, you're going to take a chance of it, it's going to show. Okay, so I'm going to let these dry. I do have the other ones over here. I've got all 6 of these. I'm going to let them dry completely where I put the fray check on, and then I will come back to you and we will start gathering them and figuring out how we want to put them on there, etc., etc. So I'll see you guys back in a few. All right, so these have had a chance to dry and the fray check is all good. So I'm going to, double check and see if there's any strings that needed to be removed after the fray check. That's the first step. And then we are going to look at gathering these. So like, see here, I'm just going to trim these off, and they're not going to advance any farther, whereas had I trimmed them before I put the fray check on, they could have continued a little bit more. So, all right, it's looking good. This material wasn't fraying too bad to begin with, so that was good. Always like that. So we are going to gather these. There's a ton of different ways you can do it. You can use sewing machine, which I use quite a bit. You can do it by hand. All kinds of ways. You can, finger pin it, whatever you want to do. But I think what I'm going to do is show you how to do it by hand. That'll probably be the easiest. If you have a sewing machine, you know how to sew, you probably already know how to do this. So what you would do is you would just run it through your machine on a straight stitch. You want to do what's called a basting stitch. You want it to be nice and long, the stitch length of it. Probably about as long as you can get it. Or as long as you want your little folds to be, right? And you run it along there, and then you're going to pull and gather along that. We're going to do it by hand because this is a striped fabric. Now, I know a lot of people are intimidated by striped fabrics because it's really hard to match things up, and you'll know immediately if something goes wrong. But that's also one of the things you can use to your advantage. So as I'm putting these down, one of the things that I did was I looked, and I can match this to this to make sure I'm staying straight. If I'm starting to go wonky, I'll know pretty quick because these will start deviating from what they're supposed to be, right? So you can do that with that. We can also use that to our advantage when we are doing gathering by hand. So I'm going to put these on the side. We'll just do one at a time. So I have my fabric, I have my thread. This is just regular heavy-duty thread. And I have embroidery needles. I have quite a few different kinds of needles, but I can never find them. I can always find these, so that's what I'm using. And another thing I'm going to do here is I want to give myself the advantage of stitching this line straight. Wouldn't that be neat? So what I can do is I can take my table here, and I can take my piece, and I can hold it up to here, and I can feel, okay, this is how much of it is going to contact that top. So I would probably want to do my gather about 1/4 of an inch in, I would say. Let's see, where's my ruler? Yeah, about 1/4 of an inch down. Actually, that'll come in handy, so we'll leave that there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my fabric, and now I'm going to use my quilting ruler because it's longer, so less work. I say as I can't even get this stupid thing on here. Okay. So I'm going to put this here, line it up as straight as I can. There's the bottom part of it being straight. And I'm going to put this on here to 1/4 of an inch, which is this line right here. Okay. And line that straight. And then I'm just going to take my pencil. I'm going to do a nice faint line there so I've got something to kind of see as I'm sewing to make sure I'm sewing in a straight line. Because it's real easy to go wonky there too. So let's catch this little part at the end. Yeah, my line went wonky anyway, that's fine. Okay. So on here, there we go. And there's my little line. Okay, so now I've got kind of a guideline for myself as I sew. Now, when we do this, we're going to have our gathers come up. You want it to be even because when you go to pull it to gather it, you know, let's say you have some small stitches and big ones, parts of it are going to tend to want to pooch out like this. But we want it to be even. Well, we have lines. So what I can do is I can take my needle and go in and out through, say, a certain number of lines, which is what I'm going to do. So this over here, I get some thread out of here. The nice thing with this is I can just leave the thread on the spool. I don't have to take it off because I'm not finishing it up, you know. That way I don't have to worry about how much to cut. I hate getting these things out of here with pliers. Every time. There we go. Alright, so needle and thread. I'm going to snip the end so I have a nice clean end instead of a frayed one to try to put through there. Ow. As I literally pushed my finger into the bottom of the needle. Who does that? Alright, so I'm going to leave this. I'm not going to knot it. None of that. And I'm going to have it on here. So I'm going to grab this and let's see, we're going to start right here. So I've got a white one and a black one. So we're going to start at the juncture of that. And let's go over like 2 lines here. So we'll do 2 black lines and we'll do another one. 2 black lines, and I'm totally screwing it up already. Here we go. And another one, and so on. That is what I'm doing, right? I always forget. Okay. Yep, I was right. It's here that I went awry, but you know, you can totally do that without realizing it. Okay, and you can gather up as much as you can hold on your needle. And then once you do that, you just pull your needle through and you keep on going. Want a nice loose stitch because this is what we're going to use to gather it with. Okay, so like this. So I'm going to do is I'm going to put on fast forward because it's going to take a minute to get through all this, and then I will meet you at the end of that. Good, so let's go ahead and take the needle off, off of here, and then we can cut this too. I'm going to put this back in here just at least lightly because yeah, I've stepped on a few of those. All right, so you can see we have our basting stitch here, and doing the gathering is literally as simple as you're going to grab the side and you're just going to start pulling and gathering. You know, you can pull from this side too until you get it to where you want it to be. Okay, so I would guess that this one, let's see, let's get it to where the ruffles look good. You don't want it too ruffly, and then we're going to do something to help with this. You see how it's like this? This does not look natural at all, right? If you had a heavy tablecloth, it would be doing that slightly differently. We are going to fix that. But for now, we'll have this like this. Okay, and so what I can do is I can tie a knot in an end of this. I'm going to do surgeon's knot where I go through twice. Come on. something to help hold it. Really? Jesus. I just can't tie things anymore. I don't know why. Okay, so we're going to do that knot there. So in theory, this will kind of go up against that. All right, so here's this. What we want to do is take our table. And so now we know that we're going to do 2 on this side. Now we can make this be, say, half, you know, the size of this, and kind of spread those out. Spread the ruffles out a bit and make them nice and even, like so. Okay, and that's probably good, because there's something else we're going to do to it too, because we need to attach it to something to keep these in place, right? So once you figure out how big you want it, let's see, and I would go from, say, that part there to the center of this, you know, then you're going to tie your other one off. So I know it's 15 centimeters, but I want this. So yeah, about like that. And then we need to get something to put this on to keep these straight. Now I don't want to have, and that's where it becomes kind of problematic. I was thinking about it. It might not be too bad to have these underneath this, which means then we can use a completely different way to hold those together. I was going to use ribbon on it so it would at least look good from the outside, but once you start to get this volume of stuff, it's probably going to start looking weird. So we can find a way to put something over it and then have them lay flat. That would probably be the best. Let's see what I have. Well, I do have this. That might work, because that way if it's under here, it's not going to be, you know, a huge deal or anything if you see it. All right, let me see what else I have and I will be back. So I've had a bit of a play with this, and what I was looking at is, you know, of course we've got this, you know, to use 2 of them for it, right? It's going to be super roughly, but I don't think it really needs to be. And I think that will cause maybe some problems with this kind of distorting out this way. So I was like, I wonder what it would look like if I just use one of these to ruffle on the side, and it actually looks really good. So now I have to figure out, okay, how am I going to get this to stay, right? Because it's not just going to stay randomly. You have to make it stay. Well, one of the ways you can do that is with bias tape. Okay, and so this is a double bias tape. It's should be a 1/2 inch. It is. So like pot holders, you know, the edges of pot holders, it's this stuff. Okay, so what you do is it's folded like so, and then it's folded out and out. So you've got 2 1/2 inch ones, and then these are, you know, about 1/4 inch-ish, whatever, like this. So what you would do is turn this on the wrong side, and I would take this here, open this all the way out, line that up with the edge of the fabric, and I'm going to stitch right here in this little ditch area. And then once I'm done with that, I can flip this over to the front. And so you've got 2 finished edges on there. Okay, so I think that's what we're going to use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to even this edge out for one. You know, I was looking at it thinking, okay, do I want to try to wrap around? And it'll be much easier to manage if we've got 4 flat pieces and then we can just connect them here versus round pieces and try and get them to hang right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take our tablecloth off for 1 second. I'm going to put this up here, and I'm just going to measure this the length of this part of the table. So it'll be stretching from here to here on this front side. Go ahead and cut that. All right, let's make sure it's not a little too long because that looked a little, nope, it's good. Okay, so move this over here. So what I can do is I can start pinning this stuff, and you do kind of need pins for it. So I've got my straight pins. Put you back on there, sit you over here. This will also help keep the part that's here flat too, because it's all going to be trapped in here. So we have this and we have this. They're two different lengths. How are we going to get it even? Well, we're going to take this, we're going to scrunch it down for one. And I'm going to take my pins. I'll move this thread out of my way. All right. So again, I'm opening up the double fold tape, opening this up here, and I'm going to line this up here. And then I'm going to put a pin in the bottom one. Eventually. There we go. Okay, on this very end one here. Like so. And then I'm going to take my tape and I'm going to open it, and I'm going to go to this end, and I'm going to fight with the thread. I'm going to line it up with this end. I'm going to put my pin in there. Okay, so we've got this and this. Now what we can do is take our thread. If we need to pull it taut, we can. But we're going to do this, and we're going to kind of evenly distribute our ruffles now along the length of this. Because now we have a fixed length for it. Oh, now I got to cut this short, as it drives me crazy. Okay, there we go. All right, so we're just going to kind of change these gathers so that they go to the right length and make everything fairly even. And once we're kind of there, it's like, okay, I think I've got half of it even over there. You can grab part of the center here, you know, and we'll pin this one in place so that it can't move anymore, so that you've just got to do a smaller area, etc., etc. So I'm going to fight with this, and I will fight with this. Don't you worry, I do every time I use this stuff. And put it on fast forward, and I will join you once I've got this pinned down to this. I think that might be even. And just on a side note, if you have a pin that gets bent like so, you probably want to avoid using that to pin for machine sewing, because you will probably end up having it get under the needle, you don't realize it, and it's super fun to have one of those come into contact with the needle directly. It's awesome. So anyways, this is probably about as good as I'm going to get this, and as you can see, with the amount of struggling that it takes to do this, it's not super easy to get these things nice and even. But you know, it's even enough. And again, we're going to do a technique to it that Ara did on hers, where we're going to put it in some watered down glue basically, and we'll get this to drape the way we want it to, so it looks more natural. But this is about as natural as it's going to look for the moment. Okay, let's make sure we've got this spread all around. There we go. Okay, so that's going to go here. All right, so I'm going to have to get my machine out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew right along here, right along that fold, so that I can then fold this stuff over. And I won't bore you with that part, but I'll do that, and then I'll come back and show you how it looks after that step, and then do that. Or maybe I'll film the sewing. Who knows? We'll see. Okay, back in a minute. All right, so as you can see, I have sewn down this one here. Okay, so hopefully you can see, because it's black thread on black, so I tried. But anyways, I've sewn it here, so now I'm going to flip this up, and then it's naturally going to fold over like this. Okay, and this is going to catch that other end in there. This gets this nice and flat, and gives us a good surface to attach to the table. So with this, I am going to pin it a little bit. Just maybe do, you know, one every few. It's not as crucial as it is when you're doing the gathered part. But I just want to make sure everything's laying flat. You see how it's got that tendency to curve? That's because that's that bias thing, and it's wanting to curve, but we don't want it to curve. So as we bring it through there, we're going to do it nice and straight. And the pins will kind of ensure that they stay that way here. And we don't want it to go up this way too. That's usually what I end up doing with this stuff, is I'm not paying attention to it, and it creeps up, so I don't want to. So there we go. So I have it pinned. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a straight stitch right along this edge here to flatten this down. Okay, so I'm not going to bother to do that on camera, I don't think, because yeah, you're not going to be able to see anything, and if I have it that far away, I can't see anything. So I will come back to you guys when I have that part done. So I just wanted to show you kind of the intermediary portion of it. So back in a minute. All right, so I have finished sewing this, and as you can see, it's captured in there quite nicely. Okay, so it's going to hold all those edges in there and make it workable for us on this edge. So I've brought the table back in, and yes, this is a Hello Kitty sewing machine. It's not a kid's one by any shot. It's actually a Janome. If you haven't, I did another video where I showed my sewing, but yes, it's very much a grown-up machine, but it just happens to have Hello Kitty, and it works so good. Oh my god, I love this thing. Okay, so now we have our piece that we can put on here onto the table like so. Okay, and so we'll probably glue this onto here onto the edge so that it stays put where we want it. And then this can come up and over this, and it's not going to add too much bulk to that whole thing. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do another one just like this for the other side. These sides here, obviously we don't need as much, right? So I think what I'll do is I'm going to do one of these like this, because that'll definitely do both sides, and it'll get me kind of the same ratio of, yeah, okay, just fall over and die, why don't you? Okay, it'll give me the same kind of spread of, you know, ruffles, basically, right, across it, and then we can just cut it, make it much easier. So I'm going to do 2 more of these, and I will join you guys back when I'm done with that, and then we will go through the process of making these, trying to make these look a little more naturally when they're hanging on here instead of, yeah, sticking out quite this much, because that would be, it's not the end of the world, but it really doesn't look all that good, right? It doesn't look natural. So, and so even though I have the sewing machine out and would be tempted to do the basting stitch on here with the sewing machine, I want these to look the same. So I'm going to do the other 2 the same way. I'm going to do the hand gathering on here, and then I'll put it on this. Okay, so that's how we're going to do that. So I will catch you guys back here in a bit. So as you can see, we have our 3 pieces that have the seam binding at the top now. So these are ready to go. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a technique that I saw in one of the videos that Ari did on her channel, gosh, a while ago. I will link it at the bottom though, because it's fantastic for doing drapes and different things. And basically we are going to kind of stiffen these so that we can get them to hang correctly so they'll look more natural when they're on the table. And the way you do that is you use a solution of water and glue. So I have here some water, a little Tupperware thing. So you're also going to need some straight pins, some glue. So she used tacky glue, the Aline's tacky glue in hers, so that's what I'm going to use in mine. And plus I don't want to use my expensive glue for this because seriously. And then here I have a piece of foam board, and then it's covered in foil. And this is going to be to lay these out on. And it's going to basically protect, you know, the foil will protect the foam core from getting wet, but it'll give us a place to pin these things down, because we're going to need to pin them down. So hopefully, yeah, these look like they'll all fit. We'll find out, right? So, okay, what we're going to do here is we're going to set these off to the side, and I'm going to start mixing some glue in here. So she said to mix the glue so that it kind of has the look of, you know, like milk, like 1% milk or something like that. So that's what I'm going to do, and I haven't clipped the top of it yet, so I'm just going to be brave and do it this way. Hopefully it'll come out. We'll find out. Whoa, okay, yeah, that's a lot. I'm just going to mix this with my paintbrush. And she said make sure you mix it really, really well, because she shows an example of what happens when you don't. So what I'm going to do, I'll put on fast forward. So I think that's about good, and hopefully I didn't leave any chunks in there. Right, so what you're going to do is you are then going to take the piece here. I'm going to get my pins ready. And I'm going to put this in here, I'm going to dunk it in here, and I'm going to squeeze it out. And we're going to lay it out here, and we're going to pin it down. I think we'll start at the bottom so I can make sure I've got enough room for all three of them. So here we go. Okay, got it in here. And yeah, see, I did what she did, but since it's in the water, you can just kind of smush it around and get those bits of glue. Cause see where I didn't get those? So just kind of rub it around in there. Basically using that to blend the glue, I guess. So I have a feeling that no matter what, you know, every first one I do will be like this. All right, so I think we've gotten that. We've got the big blarbs of glue off. All right, and so I'm gonna squeeze this out real good, and I'm gonna lay this out on here. So the reason you use the foam board is it's something for you to be able to pin into, right? So it's gonna go down this way, so I'm gonna pin the top. Yeah, that feels great. Can't get the pin through it. Jesus, seriously? Okay. I'm gonna pin this nice and straight. I wish I had the ones with the little T's on the end of them. Probably a little easier. Ah. All right, so maybe not. You know, when you think you have something and you can picture in your head this thing that you think you have, and when you actually go to look for it, it just doesn't exist. That would be me with the thimble, that I know I have a thimble. There we go. Because this is just not, that was not wanting to go in the foam board. Okay, and so now we're going to take these and we're going to pin these nice and straight. So I want this edge to be straight. So I will pin this one here. Dear God. Why is this foam board so hard to push into? Seriously. There we go. Maybe? Is it? Yes, I got it. Okay. All right, and then same with this end. I want this to be straight, so I'm going to pin this little corner down here. And then we're just going to kind of go along. I think I should probably put at least one up here. Maybe in these spots too. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to start with like the center, and I can go ahead and build that little wrinkle into it there if I want. And just start kind of getting these to drape the way that we want them to. So they're going to look like they really have the weight that you know, a tablecloth like this would have. So we go along and pin where you need to, as you feel you need to. And then we are going to let these dry until they're completely dry. So probably be overnight, I'm guessing. And the glue in here will make these nice and stiff, so they should hold their shape. So I'm going to put this on fast forward because y'all don't need to see me struggling with the pins and whatnot in real time. So I will be back to you in just a second. No thanks to my stupid absent thimble, which I promise you, as soon as I hit stop on this thing and let this dry, I'll turn around and it'll just be right there, you know, something, because that's always how that goes. But anyways, so these are done. I've got them kind of as naturally draped as I can, you know, and we're going to let these dry overnight. And so we will come back in the morning and see how they look, and then we will put them on the table, I do believe. So I will see you guys then. Okay, so these have had a chance to dry overnight, and I've taken all the pins out of them so they don't look like some kind of weird science experiment dissection thing going on. And see, they're nice and stiff now. And now they hold their, you know, ruffles in there in a way that actually looks like something in this scale would hang versus them billowing out, which would be, you know, weird. So now we're going to figure out how to put them on the table. So let's take our table here, and here, let's move the shiny thing, shall we? Let's do that. That out of the way. Fix my lighting here since the shiny thing's not there now. All right, so we have our table with our tablecloth, and turn it like this so you can see. So, you know, if you remember originally I was going to have it on here on the outside, but after having gone, oh, hey, I may need to put this under here to disguise stuff, it looks so much better like that, doesn't it? So that's what we're going to do. And let's see here. These are all same, yes. Okay, so we are going to attach it to this. So now we don't need this over here for now. All we need is the table. So we've got our long sides and we have our short sides. And so these, it looks like it, I swear it shrunk up a little bit when it was over there, which is fine. I mean, so we can decide, do we want to have them like this so that you can see the legs, or since we're going to have to do this side anyway, do we want to put them here and attach it around like so, and then have this attach here so it's like one constant thing, right? You know, honestly, I'm not sure. I kind of like them where it's just this part, and it'll show off the leg. So let me put this back on, and I'll look at it from this angle over here and see. Would it look weird like that? Let's see. Let's put you there. Christ almighty, come on. All right, so yeah, it does kind of look weird that way. So I don't think we'll do that. I think what we're going to do is we are going to take this one here, and since we've obviously got tons of extra room, what we can do is we can just cut this in half, right? So that'll be enough to glue onto here, and it'll wrap around here just so. And then this can go on the front, and it'll cover up kind of that seam, and it'll look lovely, I think. Yeah. All right. I think that's what we're going to do. So I'll set this here, put these guys up here, so they're our long sides, and we'll do this one. Where's my pencil? And I'm going to fold this in half because that's just the easiest way. I'm going to mark it on here just so I know where to start cutting. And I'm going to be very careful when I cut because I want that cut to not make this go weird. So I'm going to follow this down, and I'm going to go right down the center of this one black stripe so that it looks like, you know, here where it's just been cut off. Get my scissors. Actually, no, I'm going to get my fabric scissors. All right, so I have my fabric scissors. These are the ones that, yeah, if you cut anything but fabric with these, well, if anyone else touches these, I'm going to physically injure them, but if you touch these and then cut paper, you're probably going to get stabbed to death. Just not with my fabric scissors, as that meme says. So I'm going to cut here, right straight down this. Voila. See, like butter. These things are awesome. Okay, so we've got each end of that, and we're going to start gluing stuff, I think, to the table. So we'll do these shorter pieces around the end, and we'll make sure to glue them nice and close to that because we want, again, to have as little bulk as possible to make that top tablecloth stick up unnaturally. But this bias tape has really helped because it's really flattened all of this. So it's not going to stick out as much as if we had, say, done a really dense gather on it and put it on there, it could poke out by, you know, 1/8 of an inch even. So, all right, we're going to use Fabri-Tac for this. So, I'm getting my Fabri-Tac here, and I'm going to apply it to the table, I think. I want very, very good coverage on this part. So, bring it so you can sort of see it. So we have this part here, and then of course there's about 1/8 of an inch, and then it goes down to this level here. This is the part we're going to glue to. This is the surface. So I'm going to make sure this has really good stuff. I'm only going to do this end part first, and we'll glue these corners down on the front and back individually. Okay, so get the Fabri-Tac going. And Fabri-Tac is nice and strong, and of course this is fabric, so when you're doing fabric to stuff, it usually works the best. And I don't care if it seeps through. I mean, it would have a heck of a time getting through all the bias tape layers and all that to show up on the front. And I'm going to hold this until it really, really takes, because we want this nice and firm on there before we go bending it around the corner. I want to make sure it's super duper even with the top here. Okay, so I will do a jump cut, I think, once it's ready. All right, so that should be good there. So now we are going to bend this around nice and sharp on this corner and glue it down. So we only need our glue to go to about there. Fold it over. I'll do the same thing. And it's good to view it from the top because you can really see if it's sticking out. It needs to be pressed a little more firmly. I'm gonna hold that so I get glue all over it. All right. And then while I'm doing that, I'm gonna do the same over here. So my glue's gonna go to about there. That way I can hold them both at the same time. Multitasking, yay! Again, I'm gonna get this stuff nice and dry because I really don't want these to pop up and start interfering with anything. So I'll join you guys back in 1 second as soon as I've finished that, and I'll do the same to the other end as well. Okay, so these should be good. So now we can turn this over here. We're going to grab another one of our pieces, whoa, and it's going to go onto here. And so what we do want to do is make sure that it's ending up, you know, at the same length as this. This is where any of that can be corrected. And we will do one side and, yeah, let this completely dry and do the other. So let's start it right about there. So there's that one, and as you can see there's a little bit of glue mess that we're going to have to clean up. We can do that at the end of it, but I'm going to go ahead and put the other one on the other side. Same exact way. It's going to go on here, roughly in the middle. So get the glue on there. Alright, so that should be pretty good. So now what we want to do is we want to make sure these are done down pretty good, because we only went, say, partially to it. So we want to make sure the bias tape area is what's glued. We don't want to necessarily glue this part because, you know, it's doubtful we'd be able to do it very good. Maybe tack it at the bottom or something, but I'm going to do just a little bit under here to make sure this stays nice and secure. I'll do that to all 4 corners. All right, there we have it. So now let's bring back in our main tablecloth and place it on here and see how it looks. Oh yeah, see? That looks really good. So here's what I'm thinking. Actually, I'll turn this way. There we go. Now we don't have to stick this down, but it might be a good idea too, because see how these are kind of popping up a bit? So what I'm thinking is just a little bit of score tape along here, so probably like at this upper fold area here, and have that hold it on. So I could probably put the score tape, well no, you know what, I'm going to want to put it on here because I don't want to have it extend out beyond these, because see, when we have our corners here, you know, we have somewhere it shows that corner. Sure it does, promise you, right there. There's got to be a way to do this. Here we go. This corner here. So we don't want to see score tape, right? So what we can do is we'll put it on this. Wherever the fold is, I'm going to put it just below that. And I'll go from here to say here and not worry about getting these hem pieces so much, just because they're, you know, it'll still hold it down just fine. And then if it's a problem, we can just use some glue to tack it on there. Now I wouldn't want to use fabric-tack because again, this fabric's very thin. So even in a best case scenario, it's going to go right through this, and then you'll have a darker blob of the fabric-tack. So we don't want to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and do score tape. Burnish it down real good. Score tape, you really do want to burnish it down, because I mean, heck, even when you go to pull the end off of it, you'll keep pulling the tape off the fabric. If you press it down real good, it'll stop that from happening. Is this the most permanent solution in the world to it? No, but that's fine, because it's also not going to be super duper permanent, so it's even better. Okay, so let's put this on here. We're going to do it kind of the same as we did that other piece. So we'll get it on here good. Get everything centered. Let's see. Let's go back around this way, I think. Seems to sit better one way versus the other. But make sure everything's lined up and even where we want it. And then we can pull our tape. Okay, so we've got this where we need it. So now we can pull our tape. Easier said than done. There we go. And then we can just let it fold down and press it down on here. Okay, and we'll go do the opposite side with score tape and things like this. I like to do the opposing sides and then I'll worry about the ends, just so I don't end up with any kind of weirdness. There we go. And so that will hold that in place so that, again, it will kind of sit naturally. As you can see, it's still sort of popping up a little bit here. So I can take a little bit of glue on this end here where it's popping up, and I can just kind of tack these down and down if they seem to be much of a problem. But yay, so now we have our main table with our main tablecloth, which I think looks really good. And of course, yeah, you can't see the feet, but that's okay. We know they're there, right? That happens a lot in art. You make something cool and you end up having to cover it up, but it's okay because we know they're there, and the little feet kind of stick out a bit too. And there's going to be so much stuff going on with this. You know, the last thing you're going to be looking at is table legs anyway. So, all right. I think that will do it. Yeah, so I'll I'll tack down a couple of them later. I think I'll wait until we have the main square ones on before we do that. Okay, so main table, yay! All right, so that was the end of part 2. Figured that was a good place as any to stop. We've gotten the main tablecloth done with the ruffles on. That's good to go. So we just have to do the decorative accent cloth for the top. And so we will be doing that in part 3. So hopefully I will see you there. Hej med reschiff. Bye!